Most men believe they are free because no one is holding a chain around his neck. But a chain does not need to be visible to control a man. Sometimes it looks like a screen. Sometimes it looks like pleasure. Sometimes it looks like a soft voice inside his own mind, telling him that one more night of weakness will not matter. But it does matter. Every time a man obeys an urge he did not choose with discipline, something in him becomes easier to move. His attention becomes cheaper. His will becomes softer. His fire becomes scattered across images, impulses, and distractions that never build him. The modern world does not need to break a man by force. It only needs to keep him stimulated, tired, hungry, and unaware. A man who cannot command his eyes cannot command his life, and a man who cannot command his desire will eventually be commanded by everything else. This is not about shame. This is not about hating the body, fearing desire, or pretending that a man becomes strong by becoming cold to life. Desire is not the enemy. Pleasure is not the enemy. The body is not the enemy. The enemy is unconscious obedience. It is the moment a man stops choosing and starts reacting. It is the quiet surrender that happens when he gives his eyes, his time, his energy, and his seed to anything that calls his name loudly enough. A disciplined man does not destroy desire. He studies it. He listens without bowing. He feels the heat rise in his blood and still remains seated on the throne of himself. Because power is not the absence of temptation. Power is the ability to stand in front of temptation and remain the one who decides. You know the feeling. The room is quiet, but something inside you is not at peace. The screen is still near your hand. The images are gone, but their weight remains in your nervous system. Your body is alive, yet your will feels drained, as if a private war was fought in the dark, and you were the one who surrendered. You tell yourself it was nothing, just a moment, just a release, just another night. But if it was nothing, why do your eyes feel lower in the morning? Why does your posture collapse? Why does your mind reach for comfort before it reaches for purpose? A man can lie to the world and still appear strong, but he cannot lie to the quiet place within himself that knows when he has abandoned command. This is where weakness begins, not in the act itself, but in the pattern, the repeated permission, the silent agreement, the decision to escape every time life asks him to stand still. And over time, he no longer feels like a man making choices. He feels like a body being pulled by hunger, moving through life without a center. That is the real exhaustion. Not tired muscles, but a tired soul. Not pain from effort, but emptiness from betraying the higher man he was supposed to become. And this is exactly where the modern world finds him. Tired, overstimulated, quietly ashamed, and searching for relief. It does not need to attack him. It studies him. It learns when he is lonely, when he is bored, when he is angry, when his discipline is weakest. Then it places the right image in front of his eyes at the right moment. A distracted man is profitable. An impulsive man is predictable. A lonely man is easy to sell to. A man driven by lust does not need to be conquered. He walks into the cage by himself and calls it freedom. Your phone does not threaten you. It only calls your name. One notification, one thumbnail, one message, one more scroll, one more flash of novelty before the mind has time to remember its purpose. This is the economy of attention. It turns your focus into currency and your weakness into data. It does not care whether you become wise, strong, focused, or hollow. It only cares that you keep looking, keep clicking, keep feeding the endless hunger. Every second you give away teaches the machine how to take the next one. And the more scattered your mind becomes, the less capable you are of deep work, deep prayer, deep love, deep silence, or deep command over yourself. A man cannot build an empire inside his life, while his attention is being rented by everything outside of him. The world does not need you evil. It only needs you fragmented. Because a fragmented man forgets his standards. He forgets his mission. He forgets that his mind was meant to be a throne, not a marketplace. And this is why retention matters. Not because it is magic. Not because a man becomes holy by denying his body. Retention matters because it forces a man to face the oldest command written into his flesh. and decide whether he will obey it blindly or govern it with presence. A weak man is dragged by sensation. A disciplined man feels the same fire and does not move until his higher self gives the order. That is the difference. Semen retention is not only about keeping seed, it is about keeping command. It is about refusing to leak your strength through every image, every fantasy, every lonely impulse, every cheap escape that promises relief and leaves you emptier than before. When a man stops wasting himself, something begins to gather inside him. His eyes become heavier with presence. His voice becomes slower. His posture changes. His mind stops chasing every spark of pleasure and begins to remember the weight of purpose. This is not because desire disappeared. It is because desire was placed back under authority. A man does not become powerful because he has no hunger. He becomes powerful when hunger can stand inside him without becoming his master. Retention is confrontation. It is the moment a man stands before his own body and says, "You may speak, but you will not rule. You may rise, but you will not lead. You may knock, but I will decide whether the door opens." This is where masculine energy becomes more than biology. It becomes discipline. It becomes direction. It becomes a silent reserve that can be turned into work, prayer, training, creation, leadership, and deep self-respect. The seed is not only physical, it is symbolic. It represents the part of a man that can create life or waste life. And every day, quietly, without excuse, without applause, he chooses which one. And once a man understands this, he begins to see that attention is not a small thing. It is the doorway through which the world enters him. Whatever captures his attention long enough begins to shape his inner climate. What he looks at repeatedly becomes what he desires. What he desires repeatedly becomes what he obeys. What he obeys long enough becomes his life. This is why a man must be careful with his eyes. The eyes are not passive. They are gates. Through them, weakness can enter. Through them, vision can enter. Through them, the mind is either scattered into fragments or gathered toward one clear aim. A man's reality is not built only by what happens to him. It is built by what he keeps feeding with his focus. If he gives his attention to lust, he will live inside hunger. If he gives it to fear, he will live inside hesitation. If he gives it to resentment, he will live inside poison. But if he gives it to discipline, truth, strength, and silence, his inner world begins to harden into order. Money can be lost and earned again. Status can rise and fall, but attention becomes character. Attention becomes memory. Attention becomes instinct. Attention becomes destiny. So the real question is not what is trying to reach you. The real question is what you keep allowing to live inside you. And this is where responsibility begins. The world may tempt you. The algorithm may study you. The screen may call your name at the exact hour your discipline is weakest, but it cannot enter without permission. At some point, a man must stop blaming the noise outside and examine the doors he keeps opening inside. The age is loud. Yes. The temptations are engineered. Yes. The systems around him are designed to hold his eyes, stir his hunger, and drain his will. But weakness still requires agreement. Every surrender contains a quiet yes. Every relapse is preceded by a moment where command was available and abandoned. This is not meant to condemn him. It is meant to return power to his hands. Because if everything is someone else's fault, then nothing is his to change. But if he accepts that he has been participating in his own weakness, then he can also begin participating in his own resurrection. A man becomes free the moment he stops negotiating with what enslaves him. Then test it. For the next 7 days, stop feeding what weakens you. No cheap pleasure. No unconscious scrolling. No late-night escape. No giving your eyes to images that make your spirit smaller. No bargaining with the urge when it rises in the dark. Keep your energy. Guard your attention. Sit with the hunger without becoming its servant. Watch it move through the body. Watch it promise relief. Watch it tell you that one surrender will not matter. Then remain still. Let the impulse speak, but do not let it command. Train your eyes to look away. Train your hand to put the phone down. Train your mind to return to the mission before comfort becomes a habit. And every morning, Observe what comes back. Your posture, your focus, your voice, your hunger for real life. This is not a punishment. It is a cleansing. A man does not need to change his whole life in one day. He only needs to stop betraying himself in the moments that decide who he becomes. 7 days will not make you complete, but they will show you the size of the chain and the strength of the man who can break it. When the pleasure loses its throne, something older returns. Clarity, pressure, dignity, and the quiet force of a will that finally remembers its name. And from that place, a new man begins to emerge. Not a perfect man, not a man without desire, a man with command. He no longer needs to announce his strength, because his life begins to carry it quietly. Pleasure cannot buy him as easily. Fear cannot bend him as quickly. Loneliness cannot drag him back to the habits that once made him small. He walks differently, because he is no longer leaking himself into every impulse that knocks. His silence becomes heavier. His eyes become clearer. His standards become harder to cross. This is the kind of man the world cannot easily move, because he has already faced the battlefield within his own blood. Real power is not domination over others. Real power is self-rule. It is the ability to feel the storm and remain the center. It is the discipline to protect the fire instead of throwing it into the dark. When a man regains command over his attention, his desire, and his energy, he does not merely change his habits, he returns to himself. And once a man returns to himself, the world loses one more slave.